Okay, hi, Marilyn back here with Cotton and Chocolate, and we're doing our Capsize corner blocks with for November on page 18. So first we're going to be doing our piecing, and these are our 3-color mirror image geese. You're going to be making 16 each for a total of 32. So 4 of each of these go in each of the blocks, okay? So first we're going to be doing flying geese A. So for fly, and you really have to pay attention to which color of the sides go on to the centers, okay, because that does make a difference. So for flying geese A, you're going to start with fabrics 2, 3, and 8. 8 is the base, okay, so that's here. So here's your 8, and fabric 3 is going to go on the right, and fabric 2 is going to go on the left. Okay, so if you're confused, here's fabric 2 and here's fabric 3. It translates to the black and the white. Fabric 2 looks like the little swirl, and fabric 3 looks like the checkerboard. So you can see that in the black and the white. So you can cross-check it, but also you can just check my video here. So there's your 8 base, fabric 3 and 2. That's really important that you get that right. Don't mix it up, okay? So we're making these traditionally. So this is how you start. So I set this up like this, and I'm going to take all 16 of them and stack them up, okay, before I make them and make sure that it's correct. So how you start piecing them, and we have done this traditionally in another block, but I'll just review it with you. So the first piece that you're going to do is you're going to be laying your right hand, well, I just lay my right hand side down. You can do it right or left, it doesn't matter. So this one goes on top, and when you lay that down, it should be even with the corner and the bottom and the side. Now if I'm laying this one down, I don't put that edge through my machine because it kind of likes to get eaten up. I kind of flip it this way so that edge is going through my machine. So I just flip it and put those through, and I'll put all 16 through my machine, okay? So this, before I show any more piecing, this is the setup for flying geese B. So this has fabric 2, this is fabric 2, 3, and 9, okay, so you can see that. And fabric 2 is on the right, and fabric 3 is on the left. So it's opposite. So you see that? Fabric 8 and fabric 9. These are opposite. And there's a reason for that, because we're going to piece them together, and you want the same fabrics touching. That's how it's going to look when you piece them together. Okay, there's a method to the madness. So that's the setup right there. Make sure that when you pile these up, it looks like this. Okay, so now when you're piecing these, I actually have a sample with using fabric 9 on the base, so I'm going to kind of push these away. So in this particular one, I've sewn this one, put this through my machine, and I've pressed it open to the triangle that I've added. And once you do that, as you can see here, you'll have a little bit of a tag left, and I cut that off. So I've already cut this off. Now when I'm adding the second piece, I'm going to lay this down here, and this is going to be exactly matched to the bottom raw edge and the side raw edge. And this is going to be sticking up here. It's about a 1/4 inch sticking up, okay? And then this one, I don't have to flip it because it's easy to sew it this way through my machine, okay? And just make sure it stays lined up there. Put that through my machine, and I'll line up all 16 and run them through my machine. And then I will press this out. So I've already sewn this, and then I will press it out like that, okay? So there's my press. Well, I won't do it with my finger, but right now I am. Okay, and these are oversized. So once I have them all done, I will use my wing clipper to cut them down to 2.5 by 4.5, just like I would regularly do when making my other flying geese that are all the same color. And I would cut them down to my 2.5 by 4.5 inch regularly, you know, cut that down just like you've done with all your other flying geese. Okay, so now I have one completed and cut down, and I will put them together. Now, when I'm piecing these, they're sitting right on top of each other, and the seam's sitting right on top of each other. So what I did is I took my sew line glue stick, and as I've talked about it before, it's water soluble. But what I did do is I put a little bit of glue, like let's say this is cut down, I put a little bit of glue there, and when I had the other piece, I just matched it right on top of each other so that the seams were sitting right on top of each other, and glued it down, and then I sewed it so that they matched. And then I actually did press my seam open so that it wasn't as bulky, and it worked out pretty nicely. Okay, so that's the sewing of this. But when you're sewing it, make sure that you have the same color matching, and if it's matching, that means that it worked out correctly. Okay, and you need to have 4 of these for each block, meaning 16 total. Okay, because you made 16 of the top one color and 16 of the other flying geese color. Okay, so I'm going to put all my little pieces out of the way, and we're going to move to the next step, which is our flip and corner blocks, which are 16. So you're going to take adding a fabric 12 to the 4 squares, which were fabric 4. So I have 3 of these made. So you're going to take your 4.5-inch square of fabric 4 and your 2.5-inch square of fabric 12. And I am using my folded corner clipper to use my sew and flip method. You can draw a line from point to point and sew it, and then cut a 1/4 inch and flip it open. I really love the folded corner clipper, and that's what I'm going to be using. I used it last month also. So I'm going to be putting my 2.5-inch line on top of the 2.5-inch square, and I'm going to be cutting this off. Okay, and then I'll do that for all 16 of these. But before I move on, I'm going to take my sew line glue pen, and I'm just going to take and put a dab here in that point and hold it, and a dab right here. Now these are also, it's a water soluble glue, so it does come out, but that holds it in place. And I like it better than pinning because it doesn't move when I'm running this through the sewing machine. So I'll put a dab right there on all 16 before I sew it. So then once I sew it, a little trick that I wanted to show you is when I'm pressing this open, is I actually, just to make sure that I'm pressing this completely square on my mat, is so I have this folded and I'm ready to press it square. I'll set this right here in my corner and then press this open and make sure as I'm pressing it open that it looks completely square. You know, I just have the square here and I just press it so that it looks completely square, so that I'm making sure I'm pressing it all the way open properly, and that I have a nice square. So it's just a nice little trick that you can use to make sure that you're getting it back into a square position. So just a nice little trick that you can think about when you're pressing these open on your, you know, if you have a nice little wool mat or whatever square that you happen to be pressing open on. Just a nice little trick, and then that ensures that when you're pressing these open, you're getting it back into a square position. So just a nice little trick to use. That's what I do all the time when I'm pressing open. So I thought you might like to use that. Okay, so you'll have 16 of those to do, 4 for each block. And then lastly, you're going to be making half square triangles, and you're going to be half square triangle A is making fabrics 1 and 9, and you're going to be getting 8. And then half square triangles 8 and 9, you're going to be also getting 8. So equal amounts. And this is fabrics 1 and 9 that look like this. And then this is fabrics 8 and 9 right here. And so I've already done them, and I do press to the dark. And then when you are sewing these together, so this pair here, you actually have the seam sitting right on top of each other. So I did stick a little bit of glue right on top of the seam to make sure that it was matched up on each of these corners. I pressed to the blue and sewed them together, and then put a little bit of glue again. All these seams are sitting on top of each other. And then I pressed to the dark. And then that's our center block. So if you see this here, you see that's our center block. So this is our middle, and this is going to be sitting right here. And then our inside here on the setup, because you can't really see it in the black and white, is right here. Okay, so that's going to be a kind of a very subtle star. You can see it on the top, but it's on the top block up there, but it's a really subtle kind of gold-looking star. And then the inside corners are going to be your folded corner right here. Okay, and those will be up in your corner. I haven't quite sewn that, and I haven't made more of those. So your matching points are going to be these 2 points here, and then also you're going to make sure that these match here, right there when you sew those. So I actually did pin. What I did is I marked with a light pencil the 1/4 inch here, and I pinned that 1/4 inch to that 1/4 inch, and marked a 1/4 inch here and pinned that to that, just to ensure that that point matched that. So there is some pinning to do to make sure that these match, but then when you look at the block, you can see that they match all the way around. And so, and again, when I pressed, I always look to see where there's the least amount of seams for pressing. So when this block, I pressed out and out because there's the least amount of seams in this block. And then I pressed into the middle when I was pressing the final blocks together, because there's the least amount of seams pressing out and out here. And then I pressed in. So that's your block there. 4 of them, but again, these are your very last 4 blocks. And then the very last month, you can look ahead in your sheets, but we're going to be piecing it is a lot of piecing, but there's going to be piecing all of the sashing bits and then the outside border. On the sheet, you have already made, if you're doing a traditional quilt, we've already made these outside pieces. So we'll be piecing the sashing, putting all the blocks together in the last month, and then putting the outside borders in. And you'll have your quilt put together. Okay, so that's what we'll be looking forward to, and we'll see you next month.